On today's episode of Gathering the Kings.
I didn't walk across the stage. I had to finish during the summer just to let you know, nobody gives you anything.
Yeah.
Nobody gives you anything. That was a start of nobody's coming to help you.
Yeah. It's time to buckle in. Do you think that's like maybe the seed of what you said earlier? One of your parts of what beats inside of you is to do it right. Do you think that maybe stems from that angle? In that moment, you made a decision that like, I'm going to do life on purpose now rather than reactionary? What's up, everybody? I'm Chaz Wolfe, Gathering the Kings podcast, coming to you, your host. Got JD Broadwater here on the King stage, my brother JD. How we doing?
Doing good, brother. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, man, I'm excited for this conversation. We've been trying to do this what for seems like forever, but here we are, two freaking studs. Actually, this is, I know your background a little bit, so I'm kind of leading in here, giving the listeners a little bit of taste here, but we both have an extensive sales background. So this conversation could be very, very intense and interesting. And so I'm excited for that. Also excited to be able to talk about all the other cool things that you're great at, I'm sure. Tell us what kind of business that you got, JD.
So we are a smart home security company based out of Birmingham. So we are heavily involved in our builder community. So you build a house, more than likely here in Birmingham, I would say we have about 70% of that market where you'll move in. There'll be a touch screen. There'll be a video doorbell there. The builder will provide for a smart lock and a thermostat. So that homeowner really moves into really a starter smart package.
Yeah.
It's sort of what people are expecting now, especially when they build a house. D.R. Horton really sort of started that trend, but a lot of builders now are really following suit to that, which is great for us. And so move into that house. Our guys go out, they meet with you at orientation, tell you exactly what to expect. And what's in it for us, obviously, is, the security portion of it to
Right.
get the monitoring of the security. So that's probably one of the bulk of our business. And then really branching out into commercial as well. So we're trying to branch out into bigger, higher revenue jobs. That's sort of my role this year, is to go out and explore that.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what we look like.
That's awesome, man. Appreciate the almost like inner parts there, because I just built a home and we moved in, I don't know, maybe just over a year ago. And everything that you just described did not happen for me. And I was like, why? What? Like, I'm hodgepodging it together myself as the homeowner.
Yeah.
Luckily, I know a guy and another guy, and we we did it all together. But man, just to walk into what you just said, that would have been glorious. As far as like a customer experience perspective,
Well, yeah, I mean, for sure. I mean, if you're a builder and let's say you're not a builder, let's say you're a homeowner, and I'm looking at 3 different neighborhoods. Love the layout of all 3 of them, but this one comes with the smart home package and a company that is really trusted, that does, that'll hang my TVs. If I want a sound bar, they'll do all of that. So we are not your traditional ADT, Vivint kind of companies. I mean,
Right.
That's where I came from, but we do things a little bit different. So we can hang your TVs, we can do the audio, we can do everything to make the move super easy for you. So I think that really makes us a little bit different when we can handle everything, because,
Yeah.
there's a lot going on when people are moving, and
Oh, yeah.
sometimes they can't see straight.
Oh yeah, most times you can't see straight. In fact, you you move so many times oftenly, or at least I have, and you're like, you know what? I'm not ever doing that again. And then it always comes back up, and you're like, am I going to do that? I told myself last time I wasn't going to. So
Yeah.
I appreciate that, because I've since then done a lot of what you do for people, and I think that would have been way better to have a guy like you. But I want to know, kind of getting into a little bit of your background and kind of what makes you tick and stuff like that. Before we get into the super like X's and O's, what makes JD wake up? What's the burning desire? What's the bigger picture? Okay, so you're installing cool stuff, but like, why?
I could give you the generic answer of helping others, but that's part of it. But I'm really competitive. I wake up and I start at 0, and I look in the mirror and say, we're either going to kill it today or we're not, and it starts with you. So I'm really competitive. I used to have a leaderboard when I was a sales rep, and I would be chasing the number one spot. Not really for
Yeah.
revenue, because that sort of stuff comes with the territory. If you're selling, if you're the number one person in the country.
Yeah.
But there's just something about just me dominating the
Yeah.
outside competition. So I would say that's sort of what drives me right now, is for us to absolutely just explode and be the biggest security company in the Southeast. That's what's driving me now. And then another thing would be to do it right. You know, I was a technician for a long time before I went into sales, and then before I left and partnered with this company here. And I've just seen so many companies that really do a terrible job, and you can tell they didn't care about the customer. They
Right.
got in, they got out, they took advantage of the customer. They didn't explain the terms. A lot of bad practices out there, and so I want to be somebody that is open and does it right. We
Yeah.
don't always get it right, obviously,
Yeah.
but we're at least going to tell you exactly how much it costs and how long you're going to be paying that, and we're also going to make the installation look like it should.
Yeah. Nothing like installing a system. Really, it could be of any kind, anything in my home or anything in my business, but we're talking security. Okay, fine. Nothing to install a security system and then years later need or think one thing, and you make a phone call and they tell you something else. And you're like, wait a second. I'm sorry, what?
Yeah. You didn't tell me I was in a 10-year contract.
Yeah, that actual conversation happened, and I took ownership and said, poo poo on me. I should have read the contract better, I guess. But holy moly, 10 years in small print, and so that's a big deal.
Yeah, it's a bummer.
Yeah. Okay. So you're out to dominate and to do it right. I've got a kind of a follow up question. I love this question actually. I used to ask my sales reps this all the time. Are you a love to win, or are you a hate to lose person?
Oh, I probably hate to lose. I do love to win, but I don't celebrate it very much. I forget about it pretty quick. So
Yeah.
I'm more eat up by
Somebody beating you.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, my wife runs a fitness company and sort of started off as CrossFit, and now it's different. But I still do a bunch of those competitions and things like that.
Sure. Yeah.
And winning one is great. You're beat up and you're proud that you did it, but the next day, other than maybe some people commenting on your Facebook that you crushed it or
Right.
something, that you sort of forget about it. But
Yeah.
if you lose and you knew you could have done better, that really sits with you for a while.
Yeah. Yeah. There's emotion attached to loss. And so it's a matter of how we process that. I think that determines whether we love to win or hate to lose. And so some of the greatest competitors out there are hate to lose individuals. There's no right or wrong answer. It really, when you said the word dominate though, I actually wondered if you would answer the other way, because dominating or winning, yes, there's competition involved, but really at a domination stage, who are you competing with? Like you said, you're 70% of the market share. Like, who are you running after? Who's beating you? Who's even close? Probably nobody, but I guess now you've got to just set your sights on something bigger. Now you said the Southeast. Now we're trying to be the biggest in the Southeast. So there's probably somebody bigger than you now. So is that kind of how you think about it? Like, that's who I'm after now, or that's the target?
Yeah, I mean, I would say we're about 70% on new construction. Now, I also came from the biggest security company in the world for 13 years, and they dominate the retail space, right? They dominate the phones, they dominate the commercial, they dominate the internet. So I would say, yes, we are doing a killer job in the builder world, which they don't really care much about. They're going to spend millions of dollars on advertising. So there is another flip side to this coin that we've got to get better at, because obviously, you're talking about some monster companies that are out there.
Yeah.
I would love to go head to head with them, and we will. Just depends on if we believe that we can do it or not.
Yeah. The action there that you just described, of that there's another side of the coin. Okay, we're good over here, or we're pretty good. Obviously, you're not going to stop getting better at dealing with builders, but there is a whole nother area that you guys can not only get into, but start winning and dominating. And so what do you think that, like, I mean, the listener right now, depending upon they're in the trades or they're in security or they're in marketing or they're in, I don't know, the airspace, there's always going to be another opportunity or another vertical or another thing that they can go win in. How do you know when to go win in another vertical? Like, okay, is it 70%? So now we're like, okay, we feel pretty good. And so now let's go take a look at retail. Or is it a different formula? How do you think about that?
I don't think you could or should be moving on to the next vertical and unless you say you're closing 70% of the vertical that you're super focused on. So when we're in that market, if I have a sales rep that has 10 appointments of those a month, we expect to close 6 or 7 out of them. They're the hottest leads that you can possibly get. So I would say first perfect the process of your first baby, the one that you wanted to go out and go after first.
Yeah.
And then after you feel like you've gotten a good handle on it and a good process to keep that process going, then move on to the next one. And you have to it took us 2 years before we ever talked builders into, letting us or spending the money to put panel and a doorbell in. And back then, like I said, they didn't need to do any of that stuff to sell a house 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So, I would say perfect the first one and then really start learning what it takes to dominate the second aspect of it. But don't try to do too many things at one time or you're going to really drop the balls and all over the place.
Yeah. Yeah. Do a lot of things half well. There's a lot of entrepreneurs out there that kind of reach the first initial glass ceiling and they think that it's just time to go open up another business. And I would say that then there's certain personalities, mine being one of them, which I like a lot of things going on at once. And so if you're that type of person and you're listening, it's like, okay, well, there's a lot of opportunity inside of this one vertical. Even the 70%, like you could really dial that down and go, okay, well, what's the other 30%? Or how do we shield from a looming recession? Like there's so many angles that you could go to still yet dial down further and still like have this presence of something new or exciting, as an entrepreneur to work on. It's good perspective. I want to ask you about a good decision that you've made, but I want you to kind of like tell me your story. You said 13 years with a competitor, or maybe not even a competitor because you guys do something a little bit different, but 13 years in the industry and you transitioned to your own deal. Obviously, you've got quite a bit of success behind you. Why did you transition out? Why not just keep being a salesperson? Give us the story.
Yeah, so I worked for the 3-letter,
the other one,
the big one. I feel like I promote them a lot because I say the name a lot, so I'm trying.
Yeah, that's good.
So I worked there for like 13 years, 9 of them the technician, and then went 4 years into sales and really moving to Birmingham from a small town in Alabama and immediately, working there and sort of figuring out what I wanted to do. There was a time in my career where I wasn't getting along with, my bosses and just sort of had a bad attitude and I had to get surgery on my wrist. I tell people this all the time. I had to get surgery on my wrist, and during those 30 days, I just sort of recommitted myself and came back in there and said, listen, I apologize for being disrespectful, and I'm going to be the best technician that you've ever had. So
wow,
I did change everything and then refocus my mind.
Why did you do that? Or like what caused it? I mean, obviously there was an injury that made you think a little bit, but what was the deeper story there? Why?
I was just tired of being just not getting along with people. I'm a very competitive person, but I'm also very, like, one of my traits is restorative. So I don't like there being friction and things. And I know that, I was causing most of it. I went from having a boss that was very, very cool. And then the next thing I know, I had 2 bosses, sort of like Office Space. I had 2 bosses, and I was like, do I need 2 bosses? And so we just didn't really get along there for a little bit, all because of me and my attitude. So I really had to check myself and say, do I want to continue coming to work every day with this attitude? Or do I want to look in the mirror and say, no, this is all you. You're the one that created this. So the 30 days off with the wrist surgery was sort of a blessing. I came back, said I'm going to be the best technician that you've ever had. I really did focus hard on that. And then in the meantime of that, there's all kinds of sales competitions. And I was just killing it. I won like every one of them. And my mom and my dad, my wife was like, I think you're pretty good at sales. And I was like, I'm just in their house and they trust me. And so after some belief, with some people that believed in me, I made the jump to sales, and you're talking about a lot of sales reps. And within 3 or 4 years, I was ranked number one. Just jumped the ladder and came from the bottom of the barrel. And next year I was ranked 7th, and then 5th, and then I was like, wow,
I'm killing it.
I'm pretty good at talking. So, that's sort of how that transitioned. I caught some attention of business partners here in Birmingham who were running a massive pest control company, like 150,000 customers. Now It's way more than that. But he wanted to get into this vertical because it's not too far. They're pretty much similar. And so me looking at, can I continue to just crush it year after year? I was confident that I could do that, but I don't know if I would have learned too much more about myself or leadership or anything like that. So yeah, it was hard. I left, and we basically started from nothing. I was the security expert. I was leaned on heavily to figure it out.
Yeah.
And we sort of built a security company along with an AV company that we had purchased, and brought those two together. And so, I was your first sales rep, first technician. I installed first technician out of a Hyundai Tucson, and now we've got, 40 vehicles. So it's been sort of wild, but that's where
I'm sure it has been wild to see that, especially coming from a sales rep position at another company, and really where it is all about you. Like, it's just you, your list, and the leaderboard, like you said. And so for you to start something or partner up, and then have the ability to now say we got 40 vehicles, that's a stark difference. So along that journey that you kind of just described, as well as maybe even after that, give us a good decision that you made, something that just like, when we did this, all the dominoes fell for us. What was that major decision that you made that was just really, really good?
One decision that we made that was a really good decision was to keep things simple. We would do theaters, and we would do these jobs that would take, months. And, you got, 3 or 4 guys on a job. My cat just came in.
It's all good. He wants to be on TV.
Yeah. He opened the back door himself.
Oh, there you go.
But we just really decided to keep things simple. And, that was a good decision, because it let us really focus on doing our builder thing, getting super hyper focused on a panel and a doorbell in every home, meeting with builders, pitching them, letting them see the value and what that brings to not just them and then their homeowners.
Yeah.
Because they make money off of this too, it's a revenue stream for them too. So we got super hyper focused on that. So I would say that's one good thing that we pivoted on a couple years ago. And, we're seeing the fruits of it now, even in a downturn market. Not a ton of people are willing to give up a 3% interest rate, sell their house, and trade it for a 7.5, right?
Right.
But, the builder market went down for a little bit, but now it's coming back out of this hole, because if I'm going to pay 7% interest rate, might as well be a brand new house that I can refinance in a couple of years. So they're starting to pick up, and, they're really moving along. So that was a good decision for us, is to really get super hyper focused on what we should be good at.
Yeah. Identifying that. What do you think for you? Because obviously you could have installed security systems anywhere, because that's what you were doing before. Why did you choose builders, but what was the process that you guys went through to choose that niche? Hey, Chaz Wolfe here. As many of you know, I have been on an absolute mission to help entrepreneurs from all across the country in many different industries level up their game and grow their business and intentionally connect with other entrepreneurs. We do that obviously through the podcast, but we also have a peer-to-peer mastermind group specifically for 7 to 9-figure business owners. We are bringing some of the best and most successful entrepreneurs and minds together in a regular and a super intentional way to not only grow our network, but to be able to leverage. And at a certain point in business, success becomes about leverage, leveraging time, leveraging resources, leveraging key relationships. This is exactly what we're doing inside of the peer-to-peer mastermind group called Gathering the Kings, specifically for 7 to 9-figure business owners. So if that's you, if you're ready to level up your 7 to 9-figure business even to the next level and get around other big hitters just like you, I want you to go to gatheringthekings.com, fill out a short application, and it'll come to an application call with me, and I want to chat with you to see if it might be a good fit. Talk soon.
The pest control company before, they did the same thing. It's a little bit different, but it's not too far off. So, when somebody closed on their house, the termite bond was with this pest control company. We do what we call a welcome visit, and that's sort of what we do with the orientation. So a week before somebody closes on their house, they're going to meet with the builder. They're going to walk through and talk to them about all the devices or, even nicks and crannies that need to be fixed and stuff like that. So we wait out in the vehicle, and when they're done, we come out and we explain the program. The pest control company used to do something very similar to that. They would deliver a welcome gift to the homeowner, and then at that time, they would explain the termite bond, and then when they were there, they would say, hey, while I'm here, let's talk about your pest control. So it weeds out your door knockers and your competition because you get to catch them before they even close. So that's where we just followed suit of what those guys were doing, and they were very successful. And we said, if they can do it, we can do it. It's not the same product, but
Same process.
Same process, as long as you execute.
Yeah. And just your history in sales and knowing that there's obviously a process to sales. Would you say, for the person listening right now who maybe is the sales guy in their company, or maybe has a big company, he's got sales teams, do you think that as a sales top performer and a sales leader that your process that you learned even back in the day has served you now? Has it changed that much, or generally is it the same? Like the principles of the process, anything like that?
No, I think it all starts with the realization that, it starts with you and ends with you. If you're prepared, then you're going to do well. If you, drill, rehearse, if you find some kind of sales mentor that you like. I'm a big Grant Cardone guy, but there's plenty of people out there. If you get obsessed with being an expert in sales, then you'll do well. But if you don't put in the time and the effort to get better at it, then you're going to sell some stuff on accident and think that you're a decent salesperson. But most of the time, those people already had their mind made up.
That's right.
Most of the time, you're going to accept for, let me think about it, email it to me, let me talk to my wife. If you're not good at handling objections and being comfortable with that stuff, then it's going to eat you alive. And don't blame the leads. Don't blame the company. You blame yourself, because, I can motivate you and I can tell you to do this sales training and this right here. But if you don't have a drive to be good in sales, then there's nothing I can say to motivate you.
Yeah. I used to train new sales reps at a large company I worked for years and years ago, and similar atmosphere, although it was inside sales as opposed to your outside. And I would ask, sitting in a room of 50, 75, maybe even 100 new sales reps, I'd come in, I was the top salesperson in the company out of a couple thousand, and I would say, hey, look, who wants to make 6 figures? And obviously every hand goes up, right? And then it's like, okay, well, who in the last year has done something towards, like what you're saying, getting a mentor, reading a book, listening to a podcast, like just anything, right? And, some hands go down, some hands are still up. Okay. What about the last 6 months? Some more hands go down. What about the last 3 months? Hands go down. What about the last week? Nobody's hand is up, right? It's like, I don't know how you expect to come in and get paid extraordinarily by being ordinary. yes, you can get into sales quickly. You can get into business quickly. Like you don't even have to start an LLC. You can just start doing some business, start providing service to somebody. But you're never going to get extraordinary results without mastering certain things, which is in essence what you're saying here. If you don't, for sales specifically, overcome objections, learn how to handle communication with other humans. And there's obviously other things with business, that same thing. Like you have to learn to master these things. And if you don't, then you're just doing ordinary things, having extraordinary expectations. Probably not going to work out so good. Probably going to be pretty frustrated. Like you said, it's going to eat you alive. Would you agree?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you don't win the U.S. Open or the Masters without spending hours on the driving range. I mean,
right.
You couldn't say I want to be a professional golfer. I don't really like to practice, and say, well,
right.
You might want to find something else that you like doing.
Or something.
This isn't going to work for you.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's just crazy. It seems like you're preaching at people because you sort of want to just sort of like shake them and be like, dude, you can make 200,000. You can make 300,000. Like literally, sales is an untapped market, man. It depends on if you take these, in our scenario, you take these 10 to 20 builder leads and you convert on those, but you're also an absolute hustler that self-generate leads. You go into the network and you're part of this association and you're part of this association and you're omnipresent and everybody knows what you do on Facebook, on Instagram. You're providing content and saying, hey man, man, it can go nuts for you, but
yeah,
you got to decide you want to do that. You can't just wish for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everything that you described there is a salesperson running a little mini business. And that's what most salespeople don't realize. But even as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, maybe they're listening, if they're running a sub-million, if they're under 1 million in revenue, they're probably not making the 200,000 or 300,000 that a sales rep could make at a big company. But both of them have the same like directional challenge, which is run it like a business, like an actual business. Be omnipresent, do the marketing, hustle up new leads, create process and SOPs, like all those things. Even as a salesperson, can skyrocket your results. What about a bad decision? Something that you did that just didn't work out at all?
In this company or overall?
I'll give you your whole career. Whatever comes to mind first. I'm curious because you've got one there.
Oh, I would say, I mean, this is going to not sound good for them, but I would say go to IT Tech was a bad idea for me. I came from a small town, saw all these commercials, and like, oh, Johnny came from nowhere. Now he's surfing with his wife in California, and he's some kind of communication expert. They were good at those commercials.
Yeah.
IT Tech. And so
I remember them.
Yeah, I moved here and I bought all in. I really wanted to become a MRI CAT scan technician, because I was an electrician before I moved here, and I worked in a lot of hospitals. And those guys would fly in, they would put an MRI machine together, and if you've ever seen a cover off on one of those things, it literally looks like the Terminator. It's the craziest thing you've ever seen in your life, all these spinning parts. And so that's what I wanted to be. And then when I got here and I'm about a year into school at night. I was a technician and then go there at night. I'd be covered in spider webs and stuff like that. And I was looking around and was like, I think I'm the smartest person in this school. Something ain't right. And I would realize like all our tests were open book. And then I looked further and I was like, I'm spending all this money and this business is not accredited. I should have done my research. And so I finally graduated, and I think I owed like $40,000 on a bunch of credits that can't go anywhere, which I'm not saying that you need education to make it, because that obviously helped me none.
Yeah.
If you can learn to market, promote, sales, network, you'll be fine. But if I could look back, I may have chosen a different school. There's I wanted to be an electronics technician, and there's plenty of them here around Birmingham that are pretty good schools. And so if I could go back, I would say I wish I would have read the fine print on that, because 0 of my credits will transfer anywhere ever.
Right.
And then they went out of business. Then they went bankrupt. So
yeah. I think that obviously there's an underlying thing there of you are where you are today because you were where you were. But I feel you on that, man. I started school and thought it was a little different thought, but I thought this is not for me. That's for sure. I'm not seeing the point here. We keep doing all you said, the open book test or whatever the thought is. Just like, you know what? Just I'm gonna go learn sales. So anyway, just the encouragement to the listener that you're talking to a couple of successful entrepreneurs here. One that's a college dropout, one that did finish. I got to give you the credit, you did finish, but who's saying that it's not necessary. I think there's probably a lot of people in our camp.
I'll tell you even more deeper than that. Like, I've made a video about this and told people whenever our 20th, so I graduated in 2000 and 2020 during the virus, I saw a video of a bunch of these people from my high school walking across the stage, and I made a video about it because it sort of hit me emotionally because I messed around so much in my high school in my senior year that it came down to one test. I really just had a good time my senior year. And so came down to this one test. I studied for like 3 straight days. I made like a 95 or 96 on this test, and it wasn't enough. I graduated with a 64.4. I needed a 65. And the teacher, she said, I'm not going to let you slide. I was heartbroken because I was like, you know how many invitations I've sent out? Like, I'm not going to walk across the stage for 1/10 of a point. And she said, that wouldn't be fair to the rest of the people. So I say that to say all these people came to show up, and I was off in the corner sulking somewhere.
Wow.
So I didn't walk across the stage. I had to finish during the summer. So just to let you know, nobody gives you anything.
Yeah.
Nobody gives you anything. So, that was sort of the start of nobody's coming to help you.
Yeah. It's time to buckle in. Do you think that that's like maybe the seed of what you said earlier? One of your parts of like what beats inside of you is to do it right. Do you think that maybe stems from that angle of like in that moment you kind of made a decision that like I'm gonna do life on purpose now rather than reactionary?
I don't know when I became a perfectionist really, because after that I spent a couple of years still pouting around until I decided to pull myself out of being a little baby. I think I just sort of became more of a perfectionist maybe a little bit later. Whenever I became a technician, I like to see things done neatly. And, if you ever had to go back on your own job, which we had to do a lot of times just to fix something or a service issue, or you would go behind somebody else, you really could see what kind of effort they put into the job. And so I didn't want people coming behind me saying, this is terrible. I mean, you really spent no time and no pride in this job. So I wouldn't say that started it. I would say that probably started maybe a little more of a kick into the competing thing and saying like, all right, like, let's show this town that you're not a loser and that you can defeat the odds and you can become somebody else. Because, that day I felt as low as you can feel,
Yeah.
I was a loser that day for sure. So I don't want to feel like that again.
Yeah. It's the chip, the proverbial chip that we all carry on our shoulder, whether it was somebody else that spoke towards us in a way, or it was ourselves going, man, dude, today's not a good day. And I don't want to feel it again. That's for sure. I want to ask you about, you're a sales guy, so I'm going to assume some of your answer here, but if you could only track one thing, or what's the number one thing you're tracking right now in your business? Let me say it like that.
The number one thing that we're tracking right now would be revenue and gross margins. So, we're pretty hyper focused on the conversion rate of our builders, but this year we got real focused on not giving things away. Like, there's so many companies out there that just to get the agreement,
right,
they give $1,000 or $1,500 off on it. And I know how much the equipment costs those companies. They obviously get better margins than us because they're buying in bigger bulk.
Right.
But if you're good at what you do, you don't have to give it away. And so
That's right.
That's where we're focusing on right now is, what's the price per install that you can get? And then what'd you sell that for? What gross margin are you at? We're rolling at a 50% north gross margin on security systems. It's pretty dang good.
Yeah.
We're not the cheapest, but we're a little more versatile than other companies. So we
Yeah.
feel like we can charge a little bit more. And, it's a very competitive market. I mean, I leave sales all the time. I'm back out in the field with my guys selling and stuff like that. And I see there's, certain times where I say, I'm not even going to try to match that. Like,
Right.
it's not a good business move for me.
Yep.
So right now we're tracking the heck out of margins.
Yeah, it's good. It's easy to let go of margin when sales come easy. The last 3-ish years since COVID, it's just been, sales coming in the door because there's been money everywhere. But I think that you're giving the listener actually something really, really quality to be thinking about if they're not already doing it. When times get lean or before times get lean, the focus to margin versus just top line can really make the difference on whether you weather through a downturn of sorts. So whether there'll be one or not, we don't know. But the reality of it is that the margin is actually more important because it's what you keep. It's not what you make, it's what you keep. So.
Yeah. I sell, we could sell 100 systems and basically give them all away. And will we get that revenue from the monitoring? Yes. That is a machine that churns in the background. But if you give it away, the multiple on it, it will take you 3 years after labor, commission, and
Right.
the cost of goods sold. It'll take you the 3 years to make your money back. So you really ain't going to make a dime on
You're not
that
making any
thing,
money.
even though the background is churning. You're not going to make anything for 3 years. And if they decide they want to jump ship in 3 years, then you wasted a lot of time, energy, resources.
Yep.
You wasted a lot of time and made no money.
That's right. That's right. You mentioned Grant earlier. I built a sales team for him several years ago, but down in Miami at the 10X headquarters. Anyway, I'm saying that because I want to know of a book resource. Is it Grant? Is it a different book? Like, what would you recommend to the listeners? Go grab off the shelf and take a read or listen.
Oh man, I could give you the Think and Grow Rich answer if that everybody says, but I really do think maybe one of the best books that I've read is it is a Grant book, Sell or Be Sold. If you're going to be in sales, you need to realize that there's 2 transactions that are being made right there. You're either selling the customer on yourself, your product, the value, that this is the right thing for them to do, or they're selling you to, let me think about it. Let me talk to my wife. It's happening one way or another. It just depends on, have you risen enough to make them believe and trust in you, or are you unprepared enough and didn't display enough value to where they sell you? So,
yeah, it's big. He talks about, I'm curious to hear just your couple of 2 cents on this as well. In that book, he talks about the idea of being sold yourself and being sold on yourself, being sold on your product so that you can then obviously sell.
for sure.
In your experience, is that a 10 out of 10 necessary? Is that a 5 out of 10? Talking to entrepreneurs right now, I mean, they're either selling or they're leading sales teams in their own business. How important is it to be sold on your product or convicted about it, rather?
I mean, for us, there's a good number of them. I've got a couple new guys who don't have our system in their house yet, but they're going to. Yeah, I mean, the easiest thing for me to sell somebody is to show them my phone and the system that I have. That means that I actually use the product that I'm trying to pitch you on.
Yeah.
So, I mean, my advice would be if you won't buy your own product, I don't know how in the world you can convince somebody else to buy it.
Yeah.
It seems like treason to me. Like, I don't believe you if you're, if I'm at a Mercedes dealership or a Hyundai or looking for a Toyota Tacoma, and you tell me that you drive something different, I'm like, man, you're selling Mercedes. Why don't you drive a Mercedes? Like, even if it's a 85, like,
Right.
I don't believe you. Like, you're telling me how great Mercedes are, but yet you drive a Honda Accord.
Yeah, you're not branded.
Yeah. So, man, and that may be a little bit extreme there. Not everybody, in sales can afford to buy a Mercedes, but you know, it really just depends on the product. Like I said,
Yeah.
I think you've got to be sold on your own product before you can sell somebody else. And what better way to do that than to own it
Yeah.
and spend every day with it.
That's right.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
I
Would
believe
you sell it to your friends? Would you sell it to your mama?
that's right. Yeah. If you won't, then maybe find something else that you trust in.
Yeah, exactly. I got one last question here for you, JD. I want to know if you had the opportunity to whisper in the younger JD's ear, what would you tell that guy?
Be yourself. Don't worry about what anybody else, you know, thinks about you. Don't go out and try to dominate this world for anybody else other than yourself. You need to make sure you're super happy with who you are before you can go and please other people and lead other people. So figure out who you are, learn about him, like him, and then go out and do what you're going to do. But don't do it in reverse.
Yeah.
Don't go out and just say, because I didn't graduate, I had to learn how to talk again, all these things. So now I'm trying to show the world that I'm worthy. No. How about you figure out and accept that you are worthy, and then all the other things will come. But don't do all these things for anybody else. Otherwise, it'll be really empty feeling when you
Yeah.
accomplish it.
It's good stuff, man. That's deep. Appreciate your perspective. How can the listeners find you? Maybe they're in the southeast region of the United States and they want a bomb security system and or audio visual, or maybe they just want to reach out to you and pick your brain as a sales guy, as an entrepreneur. How can they connect with you? How can they find you?
Yeah, yeah. You can connect with me on Instagram at TechBoy1. So I don't know how I got that. TechBoy1 seems like somebody big would have that, but that's me. At TechBoy1, Facebook, John Daniel Broadwater, or JD Broadwater is my business page. Shoot me a message on either of those. I'll definitely respond to it. Our website, www.callchorus.com, is our business in Birmingham. We also acquired a company out of Texas called BSG, so BSG of Texas. Either one of those, like I said, call our office 205-978-1234. Tell them you want to talk to me. I'll be glad to chat with you and anything you want to discuss.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Appreciate your openness to chat with listeners, and they can bring some business your way, bring some new sales. Appreciate your time. Blessings on your family, your business, your partners, all that you got your hand to in 2023. Thanks for being here, JD.
Thank you so much for having me, man. I appreciate you.
Thank you for listening to Gathering the Kings today. I hope that you were able to pull out a few nuggets to go apply into your business right away. More importantly, though, I hope that you're realizing that it takes more to be successful than just being by yourself, doing it all on your own, carrying the weight all by yourself. What I have realized, not only in my own journey from multiple businesses and multiple different industries, and now interviewing over 200 or 300 other very successful 7, 8, and 9-figure business owners, is that it's tough to do it alone. And so Gathering the Kings exists to bring together successful entrepreneurs. In fact, we are putting together 1,000 kings, specifically who are grateful but not done. We're intentionally assembling kings who fight tooth and nail for their business, family, and communities. And here's what we believe, that in the pursuit of excellence in those areas, that it ignites within us the responsibility to govern power and forge a lasting legacy. So if that relates and resonates with you, and you know that you need people around you, sharp, qualified, other very successful business owners, I want you to go to gatheringthekings.com. I want you to take a look at what we're doing and see if it makes sense for you to be part of our pursuit to 1,000 kings. Talk soon.